which signals that GDP growth is gradually returning to pre-pandemic levels. The observed trend we are seeing in our growth trajectory clearly indicates that GDP growth in 2024
will exceed the revised target of 3.1% in the mid-year budget, and also exceed the projected outlook, revised outlook of 4% by the IMF. This match against global growth also shows that our growth, as projected, is more than a global growth projection of 3.2%. It's more than the projection of 3.6% for sub-Saharan Africa. So by all accounts, we are outpacing and defying all odds as far as the growth of the economy is concerned. We are also making remarkable progress on our social protection agenda to protect the poor and the vulnerable in our society. Whilst we have indexed the youth program to inflation and double benefits to beneficiaries successively in the last 2 years, we've also increased the spending on the school feeding program and capitation grant by 25%, which, in addition to this, we increased allocation to National Health Insurance Scheme by more than 40% for this year, 2024. We are also witnessing an easing in inflationary pressures from the beginning of the year, supported by tight monetary policy stance and fiscal consolidation, among many other factors. We've had inflation since it peaked at 54% in December 2022. And we are on track to achieving the medium-term inflation target of 8 plus minus 2%. We've also made significant progress in our fiscal consolidation efforts to improve the primary balance on commitment basis by 4 percentage points from a deficit of 4.3% of GDP by the end of 2022 to a deficit of 0.3% of GDP in 2023. And we are on course to improve the primary balance further to a modest surplus of 0.5% of GDP this year, 2024. And this is despite the 2024 being an election year. Ladies and gentlemen, everywhere I have gone for meetings since I arrived here, people have been concerned about fiscal performance in this election year because of our history of fiscal slips in election cycles. But so far, from the data that we see, we are going to change the narrative. It's not going to be the same in this election year. Let me make a point that, and I want to forcefully make this point, that this election year will not drill our fiscal path. This election year will not drill our fiscal path. We are determined to achieve the fiscal targets for the years. I'd like to also take a moment to update you on the implementation of the IMF-supported program. We achieved another significant milestone by reaching a staff-level agreement after successfully concluding a third review at the staff level. The staff-level agreement was the result of remarkable performance we have made so far towards the achievement of program objectives and targets. The assessment of program performance at the staff level showed that we met all the 6 quantitative performance criteria and the 4 indicative targets. We also outperformed the inflation target set under the program and met almost all the structural benchmarks that were due by the end of September. What this means is that this was the first time Ghana met
all the targets in a review. This is the first time we have met all the targets in a review. We expect the IMF Executive Board to meet on Ghana's third review in the first week of December 2024 with an immediate release of the fourth tranche of $360 million upon successful completion of the review at the board level. This will bring the total disbursement under the program to $1.92 billion. Ghana's debt restructuring program has also been very successful. After successfully completing the restructuring of 203 billion Ghana cedis of domestic debt in 2023, we secured an MOU with our bilateral creditors in June 2024 to restructure $5.1 billion. More recently, we achieved an overwhelming success with our Eurobond debt exchange, obtaining more than 98% consent from bondholders following the launch of the exchange offer and consent solicitation in September. Ghana successfully exchanged $13 billion in Eurobonds for new bonds. In a sense, Ghana has now restructured over 93% of our eligible external debt, marking a significant milestone in our debt sustainability efforts. We are safe to say that we are on our way to achieving debt sustainability as defined under the fund program in 2028 at 55% in present value terms, present value of GDP, debt to GDP. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some challenges, however. And our major challenge, which continues to impede our growth and our stability, is the financing challenges in the energy sector. We need to be able to resolve this because it has contingent effects on our fiscals and on the economy as a whole. The financing challenges are largely coming on the back of higher operational costs of the state-owned enterprises, the energy sector agencies in Ghana, forex losses, as well as production losses. We are currently implementing a number of measures to address these issues, including, for example, yesterday, an agreement that I signed with the World Bank, $250 million facility, agreement that we signed yesterday to support the procurement of smart meters as part of measures to improve collection, revenue collection by ECG. We are also working with ECG and the Ministry of Energy to ensure that the cash waterfall mechanism is operated in a more transparent manner, with all eligible collections by ECG deposited into the cash waterfall system for redistribution to all other stakeholders in the energy value chain. We program to undertake an audit of the single collection account of the cash waterfall mechanism for the last quarter of 2023 and the first and second quarters of 2024 with a view to promoting transparency and correcting any anomaly in time. We are also programmed to conduct a sector-wide audit of the energy sector with a focus on technical and financial review of the sector, all the agencies involved in the sector, with a view to embarking on private sector participation in future, in the nearest future, to promote operational efficiency of ECG. And here I'd like to repeat that government is committed to private sector participation in ECG. And this comprehensive review is one big step towards navigating the process to an eventual PSP participation in ECG. We have had great engagement, ladies and gentlemen, with key stakeholders stakeholders during these annual meetings. We met with the IMF Managing Director today, and the MD and her team acknowledged the good progress Ghana is making in restoring macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability, as well as on our economic recovery. The fund had to revise their growth projection for 2024 from 3% to 4% to reflect the good 2024 half-year performance, as well as other domestic and global developments. We are confident that we will do better. The MD, however, emphasized the need to stay the course on the implementation of the fund supported program. And we have expressed our commitment to continue to implement the program to achieve program objectives. I also featured on the IMF Today program. It is a live flagship production that showcases country experience. And I had an opportunity to express some of the lessons other countries that are now going to go through their restructure needs to pay attention to. For example, we have to go for simplicity by adopting the plain vanilla structure as opposed to the state contingent instruments, or what other people call value recovery instruments, which we consider very complex, one already complex problem. So the simplicity in the structure that we chose really facilitated the speedy completion of the debt structure on the Eurobond front. Then also transparency. We provided all the data that the creditors needed. And in line with this, we have signed on to continue publishing our debt data every quarter so that the whole world can track our debt management as well as debt levels that we continue to have on our books. And the third one, most importantly, is the fair burden sharing approach, where our people have to demonstrate that we were able to take the bullet, part of the bullet, or you can't go out there asking people to provide you relief when you haven't demonstrated your own willingness to take part of the bullet. And so these are the three lessons that other countries may be looking to if they want to negotiate their debt, restructure their debt speedily, as we have done. But we have to do this under record time. Eurobonds under 9 months, while other countries took up to 2 years to do same. But this also shows the confidence the international investor community has in that. We continue to show that confidence that the economy will turn around. And as investors in this economy, we also stand to gain from the recovery that we are currently experiencing. Ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to note that we had 2 investor meetings on 2 different platforms, and we took advantage of this to update international investors on the progress we are making to restore macroeconomic stability and economic recovery. The investors acknowledged the good progress the country was making in economic performance and also expressed their willingness to continue to support Ghana. We also met with American investors through the Business Council for International Understanding, where Ghana showcased our prospects and also expressed to the investors that Ghana remained the prime and preferred destination for American investment in Africa. I participated in the Global Sovereign Debt Roundtable, an initiative established in 2023 as platform to discuss their restructuring progress and challenges. And during the roundtable, I expressed the progress that we have made, which received commendation from almost all the members on the roundtable. I also highlighted the need to include the sovereign rating agencies in both the new financial architecture and the common framework in order for them to fully appreciate the continued efforts countries put in to restructure their debts. Following the inauguration of the Climate Finance Division in the Ministry of Finance on 18th October 2024, we sustained our push for the reform of the global financial architecture through the Climate Vulnerable Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, for all that I have said, it shows that the economy has really turned around. And we all need to contribute our quota, particularly you, our friends, the media, in helping us mobilize the Ghanaian people to support our recovery efforts. So the gains we have made in our macro stability and economic recovery so far would not have been possible without your support and without the support of the many stakeholders in our economy. And so I want to use this opportunity to thank the media for the role you continue to play in our journey. We also want to thank the people of Ghana for your unwavering support and sacrifices in contributing to these successes. Other key stakeholders who have supported us in this journey include our multilateral and bilateral development partners, domestic and international investors, CSOs, the academia, faith-based organizations, employers associations, and organized labor. We know, however, that we are not out of the woods yet. So much work remains to be done. And we will continue to count on the support of the people of Ghana and on our stakeholders, other stakeholders, national and international stakeholders, to reach even greater heights as we improve economic opportunities and the living conditions of the Ghanaian people. Ladies and gentlemen, from all the things I have said, and some of them you have observed yourself because you have participated in some of these meetings, particularly the meetings with international advisors and investors, you can attest that investor confidence in Ghana is really high. Investor confidence in Ghana is very, very high. And therefore, we must take advantage of this development to support the attraction of investors to Ghana, support the contributions of everybody in our youth efforts. Also, as I indicated earlier, the successful third review under the IMF program is not just about the money that will be disbursed, but it also shows that Ghana has been consistent in good economic performance. If you have gone through an IMF review, first, second, and you're about successfully concluding a third review, it means that we have been consistent in our economic performance. And that is what you see when you look at the data. The data has been improving across all sectors, from the first review through to the second review, and then now the third review. And that consistency should lead us to delivering a stronger economy very, very soon, so that the Ghanaian people can feel the benefits of their sacrifices. Let me repeat the point I made earlier, that all this we are achieving in spite of the fact that this is an election year. And so I want to be emphatic that this election year will not drill our fiscal path. On this note, let me thank you for your attention and to invite you to ask your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. And thank you to the media houses covering this live. We have with us here today Joy, NorvanReports, GNA, Asase, TV3, ABC News, and in Ghana, I believe City, Oman FM, they're all tuned in to the press briefing. Thank you all. We'll now take your questions. I will ask that you please keep them brief. Please identify yourself and your media house. So we'll take your questions, please. Yes, at the back, I see a hand over there. Joshua.
Good afternoon, Minister.
Yeah.
My name is Joshua. Thank you for the updates. My first question has to do with the energy sector, and specifically the shutdown of Sinasodi. I don't know if there has been an update with regards to finding a solution to that problem. And also, in that respect, the second question would be on the IPP debt restructuring. What is the update in that regard? Thank you. And possibly if you could add the CD, an update in terms of what you've been doing, given that you're entering into.
You've asked 3 questions in one, so maybe we can respond to
Yes.
yes. I need to also mention that another very strong team with me here who will answer all the difficult questions. So I'll take the easier questions. It's also because I'm going to elections and I do not want to mix political statements with technical issues. So but on a suddenly, as you know, Ghana has a number of power plants that are generating electricity for the people. And so one power plant shut down does not mean the other plants are not generating. And this is why, in spite of the shutdown, we did not have shortfall. We continue to have surplus generation capacity. And so if one plant shuts down and the others continue to operate, it simply means that we have enough to supply to our people. And so this is what I can say about supply. If you relate it to the IPP restructuring, we've really gone far. We negotiated with about 6 IPPs. The first 4, Senate, AXA, and then Car Power and Assembly. 2 of them we have signed off. We've signed the agreements, settlement, in their operation, because they are not required to go to Parliament for approval. So Senate and AXA have signed it. We've concluded the restructuring of them. The other 2, Assembly is one of them. Assembly submitted a final agreement for our review. We've reviewed it and we are fine with it, except one issue which led to them shutting down. I did not want to talk about that because they issued a statement. Let me also provide some further information on this. So when the Ministry of Finance did one-off payments to all the IPPs, we're supposed to pay some $30 million. Later on, subsequently, they made a case for another $30 million. But we did not agree to that. So when we finalized the negotiation with them on the arrears, ECG actually led the negotiation. And as part of the settlement, ECG wanted us to pay the $30 million they made a case for, which we did not agree as part of the settlement. And so I had meetings with Assembly and we agreed that we will pay. But we wanted them to sign the settlement agreement because this is one of the terms of the agreement. They said no, we should pay before they sign. But if it is part of the settlement agreement, why should I implement an agreement that has not been signed. And so we communicated this to our survey, only for our survey to come and say they no longer want 30 million, now they want 60 million. And if we don't pay them 60 million, they will shut down. That is why they shut down. Right? And so people behave as if we as a country, we don't know our rights, or we don't know what we want. Especially when election is closer. Everybody thinks that, look, I can put a gun on the head of Ghana. And so by going ahead to shut down, they acted in bad faith. This is not how partners work together, particularly when it involves financial negotiations. So they shut down. We continue to produce power. I was informed only yesterday that they are ready to sign the settlement agreement. And so we've instructed ECG to go ahead and sign. That should help in normalizing relationship, so we can move on. And so by signing that agreement, it will also mean that the third IPP is also done as far as the restructuring is concerned. The fourth one, Car Power. If you recall, Car Power called their guarantee, but they also called the guarantee and the circumstances we did not agree to. Car Power will ask that if you pay them $17 million outside the agreement, and if we didn't, they call up the guarantee. So I'm not going to pay $17 million outside the agreement. We have to negotiate and sign before I make any payment. Ghana is not just a strict country. Country sitting by the roadside. Like you are negotiating, you come and say, pay me this before I go ahead. That's not the way to negotiate. And so they also called the guarantee. We said, okay, no problem. There are other plans that continue to produce. They also tried to go to shut down after calling the guarantee. And I said that unless they reverse that action, which was an action in bad faith, there was no way we could make progress. So we are waiting for them. But whilst they are behaving the way they behave, we continue to do everything possible to ensure that we do not have interruption as far as power supply is concerned. And so we are open to continue engagement with Car Power so that we can resolve our differences. The other two, the remaining two, Send Power and Amandi, their agreements require parliamentary ratification. So finalize negotiations with them. We have submitted the renegotiated power purchase agreements to Parliament for consideration. We know that there are problems in Parliament. Somebody was asking me outside, how does the suspension indefinitely of Parliament affect the business of government? This is one of the effects that the suspension, this is one of the effects it will have on government business, because we were expecting that Parliament will approve this renegotiated agreement so that the settlement between us and Send Power and Amandi will come into force. But here's the case. Parliament is not in session. We continue to see that democracy is expensive. This is one of the costs of democracy, because we don't want to undermine parliamentary processes, but we also have conditions to meet in negotiations with your partners. So how do we strike the balance? This is why I want to support the call by the majority leader for Parliament to be recalled, so that we can continue to support the business of government in order for us to continue to meet our obligations and the agreements that we have signed with our partners and stakeholders. So that is full report on IPP debt restructuring. If you are not satisfied, I'm happy to provide further clarification, but I did not keep anything, even more in the spirit of transparency. Thank you. The CD, I wanted Bank of Ghana to answer that, but they say I should answer. And all I can say is that the city has stabilized for some time now. Over the last 1 month or so, we've seen relative stability in the city. We are determined to continue to stabilize the city. The worry by many people is that demand for forex will increase as we go closer to Christmas. And I can tell you that the Bank of Ghana has accumulated significant reserves to meet the demand. We also know that the IMF, after the board approval on the 2nd of December, will disburse $360 million to Ghana. We are working with the World Bank also to disburse another $300 million under the GPO series. And so in addition to what the bank has already accumulated in reserves, respecting these flows, forex flows, which certainly will help in stabilizing the city further into next year and the next year.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We'll take our next set of questions. All right.
Thank you very much, Minister. So the IMF has clarified the confusion surrounding its projection with regards to the growth rate, 3 to 4%. We know that I heard from sources around you that you were concerned about it because you thought it had credibility, impact, yes, with it. But I would want to find out from you what your government projection will be, looking at the fact that we are close to the end of the year. So year-end, what will be your projection? My second question is, whatever or whichever way the election goes, this particular government will be out of power. How would you rate your work in terms of managing the economy? And would you have done anything differently from how you have handled the economy? Thank you.
Wow. So we invite a politician to the political argument.
We'll take another 2 questions. Yes, George.
My name is George Affe, Joy FM, Joy News. Minister, I wanted to find out from you whether there are any clear deadlines in terms of the negotiations with the bilateral creditors, in terms of the commercial bilateral creditors, in terms of the debt restructuring. Do you have any timelines? And also yesterday during the press engagement, the African Parliament Director asked government, or made an appeal to government to be tough and strong. Does it make your work very difficult? Because if you are coming to negotiations with me and the position is that you should be tough and strong to get a good deal, has the IMF now put you in a very difficult position as you try to wrap up this engagement with the commercial bilateral creditors? The second one has to do, you actually talked about how government is in a difficult position now because of what is happening in Parliament. There are clear timelines on certain legislations and regulations and agreements and all those things. What is the plan B if Parliament is not recalled on time to ensure that these things are done? Thank you.
Thank you.
Too many questions. So the IMF economic outlook was set 3% as their projection of economic growth for Ghana for this year. But as you also know, was George who asked the question during the IMF press conference. The IMF said the data reflected old data. Because they have a cut-off date by which all the data they need to do their analysis for the outlook should have gotten to them. And so that cut-off date is April data. So what it means that we were still using April data, at which time our projection was to grow at 2.8% for the year. So even based on the April data, we will see that their optimism about the economy outperforming our own original thinking was what was expressed in the outlook. By the time the outlook came, the economy half year has grown by 5.8%. And if you grow 5.8% half year, I don't see why end year should not give you more than 30% growth. And so it's not surprising that the fund has revised their growth target for the year to 4%. We are still confident that with the levels of investment we have made, particularly in agriculture, road infrastructure, we've done 12 billion dollars in road infrastructure this year alone. And then we've invested in tourism, we've invested in ICT. All these are going to mature. But now we are investing in SMEs. All these will mature, some of them before the end of the year. And so this is why we are confident that we will outperform even the revised target by the fund. And we'll wait and see the real figure. I'm not able to. So our projection for the year, as in the media budget, is still 3%, 3.1% actually. So let's see what happens by the end of the year. How can we rate ourselves? We perform well, the region perform well. Yes, we perform exceptionally well. I'll give you the data. We went into crisis, and 2022 was the height of the crisis. And don't forget that before COVID, we were growing at 7% average. Inflation was single-digit inflation. All the external balances were surpluses. Now you are hit by COVID and other global circumstances beyond your control. And then inflation, which was single digit, rose to 54%. Now we are talking about 21%. We have more than half inflation from the crisis peak of 54. And so with this indicator alone, we have exceptionally performed better. We come to the exchange rate, the CD depreciation by the end of 2022, another 54%. Now we are talking about 25, 26% year to date. We have performed well. Then when you come to growth, for example, growth had gone down to about 0.5% by the end of 2020. Growth which was around 7% average before COVID. Now half year, we've already done 5.8%. And this 5.8% is 0.4 percentage point higher than the half year growth of 2019. It tells you that we are restoring growth to the period before the pandemic. So on these indicators alone, I need not tell you how far we have come. Now you can also talk about our investment. We invested heavily, particularly in social intervention. Free senior high school program. To date, 5.7 million Ghanaians have gone through it. And this is with the challenges of COVID, with the challenges of the war in Ukraine. National health insurance. They are spending 6.5 billion Ghana cedis in national health insurance this year. 2016 by this time, we have spent about 1 billion Ghana cedis. So you can imagine the benefit that people have benefited through national health insurance, capitation grant. By end of 2016, 5 cities grant. Now it's 15. So on all accounts, we have performed pretty well. And so even though this government is coming to its end, it is coming to its end with a strong performance, a strong foundation. And the next government, hopefully, will build on this strong foundation that we have built. Timeline for concluding the commercial. I'm not able to give you time because we are still engaging with them. And the commercials are quite complex because you have the plurilaterals, for example, ATD on one group, and you have the Chinese creditors on another, and then you have about 40 small creditors also on one group. So it's very complex, and we are not able to reach consensus. We are putting all of them together. So our plan is to group them into three so that we can facilitate the negotiation. So I'm able to give you time, but we are determined to fast track this. Because what we've done, as I said, is about 93% of the external credits, the external debts. And so you have about 7% to conclude. And so if we have done 93%, what should be the difficulty in doing the remaining 7%? So I can assure you, we are going to move faster as we hit with the Euro bonds. But I can give you the definite timeline.
No, the question about the Parliament, the standoff, and how you're going to get around it.
I've already indicated. That's why I didn't respond to that. That's why I said in relation as well.
Thank you, Minister. We'll take the next set. And before that, those watching us from home, you may send your questions to info@mofeb.gov.gh, and we'll try and address them in the limited time we have. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Osman Mubarak. I am representing the CSO's interest, and I'm the co-founder for Tudu Center for Leadership and Development, based in the northern region of Ghana. Mr. Minister, well done. Congratulations. So if you are given the opportunity to reform education, what will you do differently? I'm asking this question because the conversation around the 2024 World Bank Group meeting is around job creation and how young people from Africa are trained and how they are unable to meet the global market. So the issue is about, we need to think about reforming our education. So as a minister responsible for finance, and I'm sure you have a conversation with Education Ministry, what do you think we should be doing to reform our education to meet the global demand? The second question is, yesterday you signed a loan agreement of 260 million to procure 600 to 1 million meters. What role would you want civil society to play in the implementation of this loan facility as part of I don't want to use the word policing, but as part of a stakeholder engagement, so that at least we can also contribute towards the successful implementation of this facility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We'll take the next set.
My name is NorvanReports for NorvanReports. Honorable Minister, given the current pressures on the treasury bills market with rates elevated and increased, I want to find out from you what is the ministry's strategy and timeline for diversifying government funding sources, particularly regarding possible return to the long-term medium bond issuance. My second question is, with what you've told us, it sounds like the markets are keen in seeing us coming back, onto the market. Given our ongoing debt restructuring effort and recent macroeconomic improvement, what specific milestones do you believe is needed to be achieved before we can return to the market?
Okay. Can we answer?
Yes, sir.
So, Sam, you respond to me with the draw ones. I'm on the education.
So, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. So, on the first question, you raised the concern about the elevated rates for the treasury bills. So maybe let me step back a little bit and then answer the two together. Firstly, remember that the last time we issued a bond was somewhere around September 2022, well before 5th January, the launch of the DDEP, and we completed the entire DDEP in September 2023. Normally, when a restructuring occurs, returning to a market will take between 2 to 4 years. So when you look at the timing from that time to now, it's almost close to the 2-year window that you are looking at. And then secondly, when you take a look at the entire fiscal framework, you will realize that the restructuring took care of all domestic and external bonds. So what it meant for our financing was the treasury bills. And that has been factored in the entire budget deficit and the framework consistently. And that is consistent with the direction that we have for the 2-year period. So the elevated risk that you are referring to is just looking at the environment of inflation. Don't forget in 2022, that was around 54%, right? So if you're going to issue any bond then, if you're looking at real rates, then it will have been somewhere close to 60%. But now that we've had inflation and you're entering into the third year, that's 2025, you should be seeing a normalization that creates opportunity for the domestic bond market to be open. And I think on your second question, you were making reference to the request to come in. Now that's on two fronts. Non-residents can come into our domestic market, but they're only restricted to bonds. So in as far as we have only the treasury bills, it means that they are not legally bound to enter into that market. So the force is coming from when are we going to be ready to open? And then I think next year will be a better way. The second angle of it is the Eurobond market. Now, market access doesn't necessarily mean we're an issue, being that you have the favorable conditions for you to have a market appetite, and that comes with sovereign credit ratings, upgrade to investing and grade, etc. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Honorable Akman.
Minister, thank you very much for the opportunity. When it comes to education, we all know how far this government has invested. When you look at the budget for the whole country, a fifth of that consistently has been spent on education. And so first, government started by creating an enabling environment, giving every child the opportunity to have access to education. And so government needed to build that infrastructure and come up with other innovative ideas to make sure we get more people in there. And then two, the face of education is changing. It is changing such that it's not just what you learn in the classroom. You need to also build your digital skills. You need to build other skills that can make you ready for the job market. And that is why after creating that enabling environment, government is hitting hard on TVET and STEM. When you look around consistently, now in 10 regions, we have state-of-the-art TVET schools that are not just training people, but also giving them that skills to enable them, link them to the job markets. Also, in terms of aside the TVET, government is also focusing on STEM. And how is government doing this? Government has begun by giving every child in the primary school, in the secondary school, a laptop to make sure they benefit from the digitalization that is going on around the world. Because it is a new norm. And if you don't educate your population to also have that skill, it will be difficult for them to get onto the job market and do so. Consistently, we have created an enabling environment on our side that we have given them the necessary tools, the necessary skills, and we hope to build on that. Hopefully, if this government should continue, as in the MPP should continue, we'll build on that and make it even better and make our students ready for the job markets.
Thank you very much, Honorable.
Let me give you some theory on education. So the classical theorists on education used to think that the thanks to education was U-shaped. Okay. First, because at the basic level, the belief was to broaden the base. So bring out so many people as possible. And just by the size of the people who have access to basic education, that could facilitate growth and bring returns. The other high level of the U is tertiary education. Because of the exposure there, because of the level of knowledge and expertise, even if they are fewer, we can also facilitate growth. But the middle, in the U-shape, the middle, was people who left basic education. They didn't know where to go. So their contribution was less. Contemporary theorists now believe that the thanks to education can be a straight horizontal line. All levels can contribute to growth. And you know the missing link which they have now found, STEM education, digitalization. And so this government, the NPP government, has addressed that, and we continue to address that, to ensure that not only are we broadening the base, and also ensuring that tertiary education becomes more accessible, but we have introduced STEM education, digital education, so that the people in the middle can equally accelerate growth. That's the difference. Many people haven't come to terms with that. And I was listening to somebody yesterday from Ghana saying that, that was Kwame Gentle, saying that this government has done so well when it comes to education because of our renewed focus on STEM and digitalization. Just that we haven't communicated that broadly to Ghanaians. And so I'm using this platform to add to the communication that never should we allow this development to slip back. Let's sustain it. Let's continue to invest in STEM and digitalization, because it's one of the surest ways to accelerating the impact of education on our development.
Thank you, Minister. We have one question online from Mauli Aholomega, Ghana Web, and he is asking, how can Ghana continue to demonstrate to external creditors the government's seriousness in addressing fiscal challenges? And I think you also had a question. Please go ahead.
Okay, my name is Sana Abdurrahman.
This is your question.
Minister, I want to make a look at all on the domestic front, the coupon payments that we have made. I've observed that in the build-up to the payments, you realize that government is quite heavy on the money markets. And that creates the impression, at least from some of us, that we rely heavily to be able to then pay coupon payments. We haven't started with amortization yet. And that is leading to some fear, which I would want you to allay or explain. That when we resume or when we start amortization, with coupon payments we are heavy on that side of the market. When we get to amortization, how will government be able to generate enough? Looking at the fact that revenue is still not expanding as we anticipated and we want it to be.
Okay. So 2 questions for my 2 great directors. I'll answer on the fiscal and the case on the amortization.
You can go ahead. It's picking.
So I think I'll take the question on how we can entrench fiscal sustainability. So three main things we should do, and the government is already doing that, but we need to do more of that. The first one is to ensure that we optimize our revenue mobilization efforts. The second one is to ensure that we rationalize our expenditures. And the third one is to make sure that we put in place effective structural reforms to entrench budget credibility and transparency. So let me take each of them and break them down a bit. So in regards to revenue optimization of our revenue mobilization, you may well know that as part of the program to ensure that we are implementing our IMF supported post-COVID-19 program for economic growth, we developed a medium-term revenue strategy, where in the strategy we outlined both tax policy measures and tax administration measures to improve revenue collections over the medium term. Currently, our tax to GDP ratio is around 14%. We outlined measures which will take this effort from the current 14% to around 18 to 20%. And some of these measures borders on ensuring that we plug revenue leakages, we eliminate VAT exemptions, we deploy digitalization mechanisms to improve tax collections, we make tax filing very simple. We also clean up the tax register. And then we also introduce some tax policy measures to improve revenues. On the expenditure rationalization side, the whole idea is to make sure that we rationalize our expenditures to register either negligible deficits or even register surpluses in terms of the budget balances. And here we are doing that first and foremost by ensuring that we place almost all the MDAs onto the governance platform, which is the electronic platform the government is using for its transactions. Because once we place all these institutions onto the platform, then the probability of overcommitting is reduced, the probability of generating arrears is reduced. So that we are doing. For last year, we migrated about 265 IGF reliant institutions onto the GIFMS platform. So they are currently using GIFMS. And 4 of the earmark funds, the big earmark funds we have in Ghana, DACF, the Debt Fund, the Road Fund, they've all been migrated onto the GIFMS platform and they are using GIFMS. This year, we have a plan, not just a plan, but we've started, also migrating about over 500 MDAs and MMDAs onto the GIFMS platform. So that seems to be, we seem to be doing very well. Secondly, we've also developed an arrears clearance and prevention strategy on the expenditure side, just to make sure that we've been able to identify all the arrears. We've mapped out a strategy to ensure that over the medium term we clear all of them. But most importantly, we've put in place strategies to ensure that we prevent the accumulation of new arrears. And so we've introduced a new sanctions and enforcement regime where public servants who kind of infringe on the PFM will be identified as sanctions and applied. I must also say that one of the structural reforms we are embarking on to entrench fiscal sustainability is an amendment to the Fiscal Responsibility Act. This is one of the key things government is doing. You recall that in 2018, government put together, or let me say Parliament approved or enacted the Fiscal Responsibility Act. But the fiscal rule had to be suspended in 2020 because of COVID. Because then we had to invoke the escape clause when COVID hit. So since they were suspended, we haven't come back to the implementation of the rules again. But what we are doing now is actually to strengthen those rules. So we're amending the rule. We've introduced a debt rule to ensure that by 2034, our debt to GDP ratio is less than a certain threshold. But also, we've introduced another rule to ensure that the primary balance on commitment basis is always over and above a certain surplus level. So that has been done. But also, we are legislating what we refer to as the Fiscal Council to make sure that the Fiscal Council is now no longer just an advisory body, but a more independent in terms of its operational activities or its operational program to monitor government to adhere to the fiscal responsibility rules. So these are some of the measures we are putting in place, and strengthening of these measures will definitely entrench fiscal sustainability and budget credibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
So thank you. So quickly on the question that you asked, currently, as we said earlier on, for the past 2 years, we've been relying on treasury bills. These are what you call discount instruments. They are not bonds. And if you take 91 day, 182 day, 364 day, they are all maturing in the year. So your question that maturity, how are you going to take care of it? Actually, almost every week there's a maturity, and it's been dealt with conveniently, or for all the treasury bills for year to date. With the bonds.
Okay, the question is not just about the maturity. I'm saying that we are paying coupons now and we are relied on the markets, which creates the impression that there isn't much. When we resume amortization, which of course the load will be higher than what we are doing now, how will government take care of it?
You started with a perception. I don't know what science was that.
So I want the explanation is what I want.
Yeah, if you had a debt to GDP ratio present value, that was almost close to 100%. And where we are now, we are driving to 55%. Tell me, do you think it's too much to pay for that? Eurobond interest cost was a weighted average of 8%. It went down to 4%. When you come to the bonds, prior to the restructuring, weighted average was 21%. The weighted average of all the restructured bonds is 9.1%. You have revenue, which is also increasing over over the period. When you put this together, and this is the numbers and how the framework is saying, I don't know where that perception is grounded in terms of these numbers that I'm making references to. The only thing that also fragment the bonds, and there's a good reason for that. When they are big size bonds, there is always price discovery because there's a lot of trade in it, and it helps. So having a defragmented market is not an option that is actually optimal for our situation. So we are still in the transitional period. So we should distinguish between that and really the science that draws up the conclusion that you were saying. But I've given you the option. If you thought it was easy at the time of 100%, then how difficult will it be if it is half of that in terms of stock and also in terms of the weighted average interest? I'll draw your attention to the debt strategy. Read it. There's a table there that has cost and risk. You'll see some of the portfolio numbers appearing in the direction that we're saying. And in fact, even finally, I'm sure maybe the Honourable Minister may have drawn your attention to that. In the 2 investor calls that was done here, there's virtually a heavy demand for non-residents to come into the market. We've not opened that up yet. So there's a huge potential of resources from non-residents, not people from residents, to be able to come into Ghana. Thank you.
When I said investor confidence in Ghana is very high, I didn't unpack it. So that is one of the reasons why I said that. Apart from the fact that they are knocking, to tap into our domestic papers, you also will know that our new bonds, the new bonds that are traded on the market, are traded in a range that is very good. We hope we can improve as they become more tradable. But we are already competing with our peers. We talk of Angola, with other governments. Senegal, even though they are new, they are not up to 1 month since we exchanged the bonds. They are trading in the same range as those peer countries. And so that's a demonstration of the confidence of the investor community in Ghana, in Ghana's economy. Yes.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, indeed. There was a question from the CSOs about what role the CSO community can play with regards to the 250 million P4R facility.
Energy Ministry is implementing this program, and so Parliament approved it. Before Parliament approved a facility, it must go to the committee, and you must demonstrate to the committee that you have held
consultations with stakeholders, civil society organizations. And so as I speak to you, civil society organizations that were consulted have information on the full content of this facility. And I come from civil society fraternity. I used not to wait to be invited. Once it is a public document, I'll go and get it, do my own analysis, and ask the right questions, issue press statements, and demanding accountability. And we have some of the NGOs in Ghana who are very active on the energy space. Instead of Energy Security, Africa Center for Energy Policy, Imani, and of course, your organization. I don't know the name of your organization, but I believe you'll be interested in accessing these public documents and then continue to monitor and asking all the relevant questions to demand accountability. So this is what I can say.
Thank you, Minister. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the press briefing. Ladies and gentlemen, for the media, thank you for...
Even your good friend, you won't give him the last chance.
Well, if you say so, Minister.
Yes, please.
Francis, the Minister has given you the floor.
My name is Francis Into. I work with
one more meat will spoil the food.
So just on the contract that was signed, the agreement that was signed yesterday, Minister, you raised concern about the shortfall in the energy sector, which is making the government commit about $1.2 billion this year alone to that shortfall. I believe the government continually pushing that fund to ECG is making it relax and not being proactive. So I want to know when the government cease providing these funds to ECG to make it more proactive.
Wow.
Thank you, Francis.
Oh. When I say one more meat won't spoil the food, it appears I was wrong. Yes.
Should we put the meat back in
the fridge? Yes, so when we talk of shortfalls, so you see, we are running a budget, right? And ECG is supposed to collect money to pay for energy provided by IPPs, to pay Gridco for transmitting the power, VRA also a generator, just like the IPPs, PREES also a generator. And so all their costs are embedded in the end user tariff, which is paid by the customer. And so the one who does the collection is not collecting it for itself alone, but it's also collecting for those in the value chain, right? So when they collect, and they don't collect enough, people consume, they don't pay bills. There are people who are consuming, they are not even able to identify them. Those are what we call collection losses. As a result of that, they are not able to collect the full complement of the bills they should collect. And so they have difficulty in paying everybody on cost recovery basis, yeah, from the collections they make. So that gap, somebody has to fill it, right? And who is to fill it? They are state agencies. So the finance ministry agreed that we will budget for the shortfall. But if they were to be efficient and collecting more, if those who steal power were to be paying for the power, right, then they will be able to collect more to pay all those in the value chain what is due them. And then the finance ministry will not have to come in to fill a gap. Even if we have to fill a gap, it will be a little gap compared to what we currently do. And then that budget can be repurposed to critical areas of education, health, road infrastructure, etc., etc. And so this is a matter we can no longer leave for the energy sector players. And this is why finance ministry has shown interest, okay, in the negotiating measures that we need to implement. And so we are working closely with the Ministry of Energy to ensure that these measures are implemented in order for EC to collect more, to pay everybody, and then the burden on the budget of having to pay for the shortfall is minimized or eliminated eventually, right? And so the agreement we signed yesterday was part of those measures to provide money for ECG to buy more meters, smart meters, you know, so that we can reduce the collection losses. And so more revenue collected, then I don't have to, at the Ministry of Energy, find money to pay the shortfall. So this is one of the measures. But there are other measures like the cash waterfall mechanism I talked about, which needs to work. But we found that not all the money collected were going into the cash waterfall mechanism, right? And so by ensuring that all of them go to the cash waterfall, we can account fully what is collected from customers. And then it will moderate the shortfall and the fiscal burden it imposes on us. So these are some of the measures. I also talk about operational efficiency. And this time it's not just ECG. The other agencies, to what extent can we say that the cost which is embedded in the tariff, the end user tariff that ECG collects, to what extent can we say that the cost reflect efficiency? So most of the time we talk about ECG, but I tell you, it is not just about ECG. You know, VRA, We Power Authority, Gridco, that is why we are agreeing to do a sector-wide audit, a comprehensive review, financial and technical review of the entire sector, so that we can see, you know, who are contributing to the cost. And whether, the cost is efficient cost or inefficiency that is being, put through the cost to the customer to pay. And so when we do this, we will have a holistic approach to addressing the sector challenges and reduce its contingency, the contingent liability it imposes on the Ministry of Finance. So let me thank you all, our media friends, for participating actively in this press conference, and also to the staff of the Ministry of Finance, Minister of State, Chief Director, directors, our friends from the Bank of Ghana. I want to thank you most sincerely for your contributions to these press conferences and generally for the annual meetings that we have successfully come through. So God bless you all, and God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.